a series which we thought of starting. So in this series, we have three major categories. One is the semiconductor partners, the second one is the manufacturing partners, and the third one is the software partners. So here with semiconductor partners, we have majorly the SoC partners and then connectivity partners. Further going, we will try to pull in more and more partners. As we have planned this theme of electronic design and manufacturing ecosystem for next 3 months, right? Like, so you have a lot of sessions like this, where in which we try to pull in all our partners who would like to share their experience, their technologies, and discuss more on this. So this is a more a discussion kind of stuff rather than a technical workshop. So, so I believe you would enjoy, and we will have a good long journey. Now, coming to the first session, I thought like it would be the best to introduce the introduction of the processors, basically, wherein which today when we want to buy a PC or a laptop, basically we know we go to the market and then we know that like either you have to buy i3 or i5 or i7, or when when do you need to invest for a i7, which may go in a budgetary code of like say 40 to 50,000 INR. So there are some criterias, right? And then before the criterias, you also know that like these are the processors which exist, say Intel. So earlier, if the seniors from the industry, they might know Intel Pentium 5, Celeron, x86. It normally starts from 186, 286, 386. So these are the Intel cores. Us in the industry who are using computers might know this. But like, is it the same thing which we can also think when we are developing embedded product? So how these embedded processors are categorized or like can be selected on the basis of their performance, features, and then their prices, right? So this is the first session we thought to introduce. So first of all, let us go through the embedded processors. So before starting my session, I would like to quickly run a couple of slides introducing Phytech. So as a Phytech, like we are a 33 years old German company. Sorry for the misalignment of the PPT. It is, I'm using my iPad to host, but you would get a PDF version of this presentation on the same link where you have registered the things. So Phytech is a 30 years old German company, wherein which the headquarters is in Mainz. We have a 5 SMT line production, wherein which we do design, develop, manufacture system on modules. So our second subsidiary is in Phytech America, wherein which we have 28 team members, also do a lot of product designs, mainly based on TI. And then we have a small team in France. In India, we started with 5 people, which has grown to 42 people over here. So more than 50% of the strength is engineering strength. Rest are in sales and operations. We have a small office in China too. And we are a small conserved company. So you can see our last revenue of it's actually 2019 revenue, which is $74 million. So this is a quick overview of our product portfolios. The major product lines covers the system on module, single board computers, and we have a lot of IoT products, where in which small wireless modules, starting from your Zigbee, Bluetooth, and majorly we do more complete solution integration part in industrial IoT, where our single board computers acts as gateway. So furtherless, we have embedded imaging division, where we do industrial camera modules design and manufacturing. And last but not the least, the software BSP. So for all our hardware, we do develop most of the software in-house, which is an industrial grade, and mostly we work on Android, Linux, and then also bit extend on Android and WinC basically. So today, like Windows is little bit more on hold, but soon, once the Windows IoT core is more widely accepted, we would also restart the part. Otherwise, we were Microsoft Gold partners for WinCE. So this that's all about Phytech. So let us jump to the session topic. So the session topic, as I told, I would fairly like to share whatever the minimal knowledge we have in embedded domain using embedded processors. So when I say embedded processors, currently we are limiting, because of our experience, we are limiting the embedded processors to the ARM architecture, but indeed you have multiple other architectures which are based on RISC architecture basically. Maybe upcoming partners like TI and Microchip and other partners would also introduce couple of more RISC architecture other than ARM. Example, MSP 430 or PIC microcontrollers from Microchip. You would hear more from the partners. So our session is more oriented towards the ARM. So quickly, to understand the ARM processors, let us have a little bit deep insight of the processors. Now here, if you see, there are three terminologies: architecture, microarchitecture, and implementation, right? So the architecture more speaks about the specifications or the general components or the standard components which goes as an architecture to maintain high compatibility or backward compatibility when things are moving every day. It is advancing to the new series of products basically, right? So there is a set of specifications which has been which is fixed, and then like it gives a huge backward compatibility. Today you can see the ARM cores which starts from ARM TDMI basically. Today, like the architecture is the latest architecture, you would say ARM V8, which is a 64-bit architecture but still compatible with ARM V40. Essentially, I would say ARM V7. ARM V40 is TDMI based. So the micro architecture is more about like what are the pipelining you can execute. So the architecture speaks about what should be your instruction set, what would be your memory layout, what is the data size basically. So these are the things which are fixed in the architecture, whereas the hardware components like pipelining, and then like how many processors parallelly can be hooked together. So these all things comes under micro architecture. Using this, the ARM releases the IP, ARM IP, and the implementations are in terms of cores basically. So to see a little bit overview of the architecture. So here I have captured very small. So ARM v40 would be the predecessor, which is more your, if you have heard about ARM 7 and ARM 9 and ARM 11, right? So ARM 11 also falls under V5, and also some of the cores comes under V6. So ARM v40, which was the at least that is the first core which I started using, ARM 7 maybe early 2010 or so, right? So these here you can see what are the different blocks which has been added when moving on each architecture. So when you see ARM v7, so this is the major architecture shift in ARM, because there were the classic TDMI family to the Cortex family has been formed. So ARM v7, starting from ARM v7, we have all the Cortex families. So instead of calling it as a classic, now there is a big shift. And adding the 64-bit here basically, so still supporting 32-bit architecture, the 64-bit architecture also has been added, right? So this is a very quick overview of the architecture. So above architecture, you get the cores. Now, what are these cores about basically, right? So you take this architecture and like build a processor basically. So when I say architecture, really it's not the processor. So we go to the implementation part of it and it becomes a processor. So till ARM TDMI, which is nothing but ARM v5 architecture or v6 architecture, basically the cores were not categorized and morely used as either microcontroller or application processors. But starting from ARM Cortex v7, basically the profiling has been adapted in ARM. So the profiles, there are 3 profiles of the cores, ARM cores. So ARM core, Cortex A, Cortex R, and Cortex M basically. So the Cortex A is a high performance course, like whatever the processors you want to use for with the operating system, right? Like when you want to run a Linux operating system or Windows operating system. So you need a processor which is highly capable enough to run a OS below your application. So your application is designed in such a way that, assuming that the OS takes care the beneath layer functionalities, and the application is more focusing on your business logic, right? So that's how the A cores are there. ARM course in application course we call. So similarly, we have real-time cores, essentially when you have a time-critical systems. So wherein widely you do see the usage of medical, and then like networking, and then like wherever you do really see a hard real-time requirement is there basically. So you can use ARM Cortex R series basically. And then going to ARM Cortex M series. So this is the microcontrollers wherein which we use. So today when you say a smart toothbrush, right? Like or a small smart lock basically. So or you when you go to in a car, like you have a Bluetooth enabled keychain. So all these are the very small microcontrollers. Essentially, you can consider it as your replacement of your 8-bit and 16-bit microcontrollers. So the microcontroller profile is what your M profile. So application cores, real-time core controllers are the 3 different course underway. So somehow this slide is missing. I will add. So in this slide, we have listed what are the different ARM cores are there. So in application core, you have ARM Cortex. Start with ARM Cortex A8, you have ARM Cortex A9, you have ARM Cortex A5 basically, and then you have ARM Cortex A15, A17. So these all are 30 processors, wherein which in ARM Cortex R series you have ARM Cortex R4, R5 and R. So some of this slide is missing. I will try to add it and share in the PDF format. Post this session, you can download the same from the link. And coming to the ARM Cortex M series, so you have Cortex M3, M4, M0, M0 plus. Now you have Cortex M7. So these are the cores or the processors which you have to select from, wherein which you can see what is the performance versus the cost. Now, in order to highly categorize how which processor to use when, could be your mobile phone. This is the simplest example I picked up from armdevelopers.com, where it's a mobile device. If you really see the mobile device, you would be amazed just to see how many ARM processors are really in that, right? The first thing is your main processor, which you can see the application app core, it is listed over here, and then most of these application cores again are multi-cores, basically, where you have Cortex A series. Cortex A series. So now today, most of your high-end mobiles, latest mobiles, comes with ARM Cortex A72, ARM Cortex A53. So these are the 64-bit cores. Below these 64-bit cores, you have Cortex A17 and Cortex A15. Now going to the smallest example, you can see the touch screen, which is again could be a ARM Cortex M0. So mainly it is a controller basically. And like you can see or power management. So for all the small activities where you need a very specific operation, you use a Cortex M series. So which is a small microcontroller with a low cost part basically, right? So here again you can see flash controller. A simple example could be like now when you are using a pen drive, right? Like so it is the pen drive consists of your storage flash memory plus a small controller which talks with your host, right? Like when you connect your pen drive to a PC, there should be some device which talks with the PC and also talks with a NAND flash or eMMC flash, which is there on the pen drive, right? So like the pen drive, if you really see, it consists of a storage device as well as one controller. So similar kind of those controllers again would be of Cortex M series basically. Again, if you see the GPS or Bluetooth, so these are the how do you define a GPS, right? Like so the GPS is a wireless receiver which talks with your satellite and takes the satellite signals, and then analog signals which has to be converted to digital, and after digital lot of algorithms has to be applied to get your latitude, longitude, not only latitude, longitude. If you go through a NEMA packet, which is a protocol for standard GPS, you would see more than 20 parameters, 20 or more parameters is given by your GPS module, right? So after taking the analog data, converting it to digital, and the processing of that and retrieving all the information which has been which has to be a standard GPS parameters, those are calculated by this microcontroller and sent across UART, mostly UART, or else like you can also find couple of times one wire or two wire interfaces, but UART is the most common interface. So same way, Bluetooth is also your analog front end plus microcontroller, which again have a Bluetooth stack software algorithm, right? So you have a SIM cards again, in which a very small secure microcontrollers are used basically. Similarly, your Wi-Fi and finally the communication modules. So here it is a more a consumer device example, but if the chips which you really select, basically it depends like the same architecture or the same philosophy also would be applicable for the embedded products. So it is more to understand, this example is more to understand which ARM processor, whether it is an ARM application core or a microcontroller core or a real-time core, when to use what kind of stuff. So this is the best example I thought, which can give a good illustration. So what happens after the ARM gives the cores? So the ARM cores are taken by the silicon vendors as a IP, intellectual property licensing. So ARM license these IPs to the semiconductor vendors. ARM really do not manufacture any processor, so they only design and release as a core. So the silicon vendors take these cores and develop their processors. Here I have listed couple of silicon vendors like TI, NXP, Microchip. So I would like to give a small categorization or classifications you can do. So the ARM processors can be a little bit classified in terms of your market or the product profile, right? So let us see from a highest selling embedded devices or like the electronics devices, which is your mobile phones, right? So the mobile phones which need a very specialized hardware with a specialized software, which are manufactured in a very high quantities. So that's how the companies like Qualcomm and MediaTek are the pioneers in this field, where they develop the processors along with the wireless processors, basically, which is more communication processors for your LTE or cellular communication, basically. So Qualcomm and MediaTek comes more from the mobile and tablet segment. So especially again for Android tablet, if you see more the companies from Asian companies like Rockchip, Amlogic, Allwinner, these are the low cost processors which highly cater to the tablet market, Android tablet market, wherein which you see a lot of low cost Android setup box TVs, and then you see a lot of dongles, right? Like say you Miracast or AirPlay. All these you can see, you can buy it for something in 1,000-2,000 bucks, basically. So Indian INR. So that is because of these low cost processors which enable them to be manufactured in mass and reach to the price. So we saw the mobile players, the mobile categorization can be from Qualcomm and MediaTek, and tablet categorization can be from Rockchip or Amlogic and Allwinners. It's not that they do only these, but like this is the major market share they occupy, right? And networking market share is occupied by companies like Broadcom, Marvell, Athros. Now Athros is a part of Qualcomm. So when you are really interested to do some networking product like wireless routers or switches, and also you would you should more explore from the companies like Broadcom, Marvell, and then Athros now, which is part of Qualcomm. So these are a couple of things which I know. It is a limited information. Please don't take it as like these are the only, but like these are the couple of companies which we have experience through our last projects, right? So and then finally, so we saw the mobile, we saw the Android tablet market, we saw the network market, wherein which you saw the players like Broadcom, Marvell, and Athros, and then finally the general embedded market, which is mainly catered by companies like TI, NXP, Microchip, and Renesas, basically. So these are the companies who do the general embedding, and under general embedding, again you have automotive, and you have also a little bit more rugged. You can have a space grade or a kind of categories, but these all falls under general embedded processes. So this is just for an introduction. In next sessions, we have all these partners who can present all their processes and their latest technologies which are there. So I'm just trying to give high level classification, so that which will really help you to connect which product you are designing, and which are the partners you should look for, right? So these are the partners. So this is where here I want to say, like, there are a couple of schedules which are already there. So I just wanted to share, and more we will be keep on updating these schedules, and let us go for the open discussion. So dear friends, this series, we actually wanted to talk less. Somehow in this session it was a little bit delayed. Mostly we will try to keep our presentation not more than 20 to 30 minutes. What we really need is the participation from the audience, so wherein which we can discuss what kind of products they want to develop, and what kind of support they need from which kind of partners. So probably we try to bring on the partners. So in this forum, we are inviting the partners, we are inviting the inputs from the product manufacturers, basically, wherein which we can bring all the ecosystem, or build a strong ecosystem to help each other. I have one question. So the question is from Mr. Bappa. So we are starting a QA session. So probably you can start looking into the QAs.
Yeah.
So one of the question I could see is Mr. Bappa is a board designer, and he see a lot of STM32. Is that the most popular ARM, is always 32-bit, or 32 or 64? So Mr. Bappa, the STM32, the beauty of the STM32 is basically they were one of the early adapters of ARM cores, where as per my knowledge, I would recall it was my same experience when I heard about Cortex M3. It's not about ARM7 or so. Cortex M3, which was very early in 2005. So they have been very early adapters. So ST Microelectronics, and one of the company at a very early stage who used to provide peripheral driver libraries. So now I say every semiconductor partners also do provide, but from my experience, STM32 has a very good ecosystem, and then they used to provide a good libraries in very early days. So, and the cores were also available, right? Like say STM, I would still remember ARM7 ARM7 based STM was in many products, embedded products. It has been used. It is very easy to use and develop. So STM32 is a family. It is not architecture. It is again in STM. Again, they have ST their own. They have 805N based architecture MCUs and also ARM cores. So when you see the series, probably in ST session, you could be able to see the line of STM microcontrollers what they have, but they also offer 8051 architecture as well as ARM based architecture. So today they have STM L series, which is a low power and mainly for the IoT applications. Basically. So about 32-bit and 64-bit. 64-bit is more for the high-end processors, as I said, application cores. So mainly, and the cores are Cortex A53, A30, A53, A72. These are the ARM Cortex cores, basically. So coming to the courses, basically, so now I think you have a lot of online resources which do provide a very low cost training courses. Yeah, there could be a small limitation of hardware, but I believe there is a very low cost hardware which are available now online. So things are more easy. So you can the partners like TIA, ST, all the semiconductor partners, they are also releasing a lot of developer tools which mostly are in a range of $10 to $20, not more than that. We have a lot of sourcing partners which will be presenting in next month. So next month is more, we have planned the manufacturing and sourcing partners to participate in this session. So probably you can also, if you are not able to buy online, probably you can take help of those sourcing partners.
Vasu sir, there are some questions in Q&A session actually, not in chat. Can you go to the Q&A?
Yeah.
Yeah. So first question is, what will be the situation of employees in the embedded domain post lockdown? Will there be job losses? How this domain is affected?
So from the perspective of embedded, yes, there are some challenges when compared to the software companies. Basically, for example, you can't really do the whole development when you have to work from home. That is one. So there is the culture of work from home or remote work. It is not so easy for the embedded domain. That's what even we did also. We with our partners also have faced, right? So we have faced similar things. Now coming to jobs or the works, yes, there will be a little bit of slowdown, especially as you know that like the automotive sector and then the travel industry and the tourism industry. So is going to slow down little bit for at least for I would say somewhere around 1 year or so. So mid of next year, till mid of next year, you would see there will be a slowdown, maybe which may gear up, which can gear up after end of this year. But today the situation is not so predictable. So I would say yes, there will be a slowdown. There will be a little bit of less jobs. But what I do really see is this is a golden opportunity where like if there is a real embedded developer or the hardware developer or a software developer, if you can reskill and do the say today in parallel, I would see a lot of ecosystem is developing where in which say example freelancing or the companies would like to hire more on a not on a permanent payroll, maybe on a contract basis. So there are a lot of opportunities also popping up like that for the embedded domain. We cannot deny that like there will be some slowdown, but at the same time we could see there are a lot of opportunities. There are a lot of opportunities which can be addressed. So I'm just jumping to the next question. Basically, Indian cloud vendors for IoT application, would you refer any? So currently we have enabled a couple of tier 1 partners. So all the big companies are very much operating in India basically, and they can support. But at the same time, there has been a lot of small vendors. And then probably what we are doing is in a week or two, you could see the same open session page where you did registered. You can see a lot of partners are listed, and then they will also have a specific session. So currently I'm not getting a couple of names because my other team members are working with those partners. So we have a couple of partners who are already working with our teams. So I would surely connect to them. Please utilize the feedback form or feel free to write us on the email ID info@fitech.in. So, and our team will try to connect you with a couple of partners. So the other next question is, which is the best microcontroller for analog processing? So in this question, I could derive two. One is, are you looking for the analog components within the chip? Basically, so for example, TI, if you really see TI MSP 430, which has been very popular, especially because of the analog components which are included in the microcontroller. So you could explore a couple of them. Then you have now analog devices could be one more option, and there could be, and I would remember there is from Cypress there is a one platform called PSOC where you can build a couple of your own hardware blocks. So so please look into that, and still we are open, so you can always post these. What are products of Fitech?
Yeah, Mr. Vasu, like before going to the next questions, I think let us introduce Mr. Johnson. He is online. Even some questions are there for him as well. So can you enable the audio for him? I mean,
yeah.
So let me introduce Mr. Johnson. So he's a technical head of Phytech India basically. So he used to look into all the software related as well as all the project execution part. So any like some of the questions I have actually, which maybe I'll directly ask you. So in the processor technology, so how do you foresee the future of processor technology moving? So that is one of the
Okay,
question.
so,
Yeah, that is one of the question. Yeah, maybe you first answer this, then I'll ask the another question after some time. Yeah.
so can you repeat the question? Are they talking about a specific embedded processors or in general processors?
In general.
So for embedded processors, one of the great futures which are lying ahead is currently a lot of processors which currently cater to the embedded industries don't have abilities to work with AI and ML. So going forward, you will see more processors will be coming where more AI and ML oriented processors will be there in the market. Already we have Phytech. As such, Phytech also have few processors which which cater to AI and ML. But going forward, you will see more processors will be coming who will cater to AI ML, as well as you will start seeing that lot of processors which will be having inbuilt tensor controllers and all those things. So these are the future technologies which is going to happen in embedded sector. For general process, these things are already there in the market, but for embedded, still the evaluation stage is going on. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you. So second question is, what would be your suggestion to organizations, like especially in the embedded organizations, while considering their product development? Shall it be with shorter end of life, which cost less, or having longer end of life, which cost higher? So which will be your suggestion?
See, it all depends upon the processor. We should never see with respect to the processor and technology. We should always see with respect to the market demand and the application process which is available in hand. So if you see with respect to the processors and all those things, it is very difficult to ascertain the kind of project you will be having in hand. So if you have a particular market demand and whatever process you have, you should try to get it immediately done. It has been in general seen that always whenever the project is with us, the process will not be there, or when the process are there, the right projects are not there. So people who go with the other way, seeing when the right process will come, I will make my product will be an utter failure for them. So if you have really a project with you, there are really a good embedded process in the market, you should right away start discussing with the OEM vendors, and right away you should make your products. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you, sir. Thank you for your feedback and the answers.
Ashraful,
Yeah.
I would like to add a little bit on Johnson sir's inputs, basically. So, regarding the AIML, so couple of terminologies which I would like to introduce to the audience. So, what we have seen in this session is more on processor, ARM processor, right? Like, so which is ARM Cortex, M series, ARM Cortex A series for application, and Cortex R series for the real time. So these are the processors which we have discussed, but like there are a lot of co-processors. When we say co-processors, these are the additional processors which helps or which take up a couple of data processing offload from the main processor. So the best example could be your GPU, graphic processing unit, which really offloads the 2D and 3D. So in NVIDIA, if you really see, there is a CUDA GPU. So the GPU, what they use is from the CUDA family. So which also currently is used as a TPU because it have a huge number of cores which can do the image processing very well. So similarly, you will have VPUs. After GPU, you have a VPU, normally these VPUs were called as video processing units. So now normally if you see most of these applications as on today handles with multimedia, and they need audio video encoders and decoders, which has been embedded into the processor as VPU. So video processing units. Nowadays for AI ML, people quite often call them as a GPU, TPU or VPU. GPUs are also used for AI ML. Then you have VPU, visual processing unit they call, which is also more or less like TPUs. And then TensorFlow processing unit is also a kind of AI ML accelerator. So these all are hardware accelerators which you need to see, and these are the upcoming course, as Johnson sir rightly pointed. So now quickly I would like to see a couple of more queries. One is from Jitendra, saying that like for a beginner in embedded domain, is it a good idea to start with Atmel processor or ARM processor? I believe what he is more, when he says Atmel processor, he is more talking about Atmega Arduino. So Jitendra, no doubt, like you have to follow the ecosystem where in which you have more help, and then you see what are the applications available and which application you want to develop. So no doubt you can start with Atmega, which could be a lot easier with help of Arduino kind of open source hardwares. And then like once you gain really, see, the basic thing which you have to gain a knowledge is really how to access the registers in a microcontroller, right? And then like how to program it. So if these are the basics, and what are the basic protocols, like what is the I2C, what is the SPI, and what are UARTs. So these kind of basic things, if you really learn, it is processor is irrespective until and unless you are going for a product manufacturing. So for learning purpose, I would say you can always use which is more easy for you from an ecosystem perspective and the cost perspective, and but keeping in mind that like you have to learn the basic things, as I told. So the memory models and the registering, accessing the registering. The embedded programming is more about accessing the registers kind of stuff, right? Like, so that's what. So another question was, what is the best idea for ARM coding? Johnson sir, would you like to take up this question? So one of the participants has asked, what is the best best IDE for ARM coding? I don't think like you need to worry on, okay, mostly the microcontroller guys try to have this. Johnson sir, I thought like it is a ARM coding related something, but it is a IDE, so I can handle. So I would say, like, see, the most popular in market when you see IAR Workbench, and then ARM, the Keel IDE is the most popular one. So it depends. It is for your company or for your individual. So you have to see. But if you are for a learning purpose, now a lot of IDEs are there which are based on Eclipse. So the Eclipse is the IDE, and you have a ARM tool chain which is open source. So you can easily configure your open source tool chain, and then you can go with the IDE. So a couple of more IDEs like Kucox. There are a lot. Today there are a lot. So maybe like I will ask one of my team member to write a blog on it, and probably you can look more into that. So the next question was, can you suggest a cheap microcontroller or microprocessor for PTP implementation? So PT, I believe the latest, I believe there are now controllers like ARM Cortex IMX7 and STM32 and then AM335. These are the microprocessors which comes along with microcontroller. So normally what we have seen is this industrial protocols are implemented in the MCU part of the processor. So example, IMX7 from NXP have Cortex A7 for your Linux and Cortex M4 for real-time processing. So I believe the PTP need a real-time based real-time processing. So you can implement, like say, using some RTOS or a standalone code, you can implement in Cortex M4 of IMX7. So similar kind of processor you have from STM32. Now the latest, these are called heterogeneous cores basically. So you have two different cores in the same processor. So STM MP15 is from ST Microelectronics, where again you get Cortex A7 plus Cortex M4. So the next question was, how would you feel the idea of Make in India as far as embedded manufacturing is concerned down the line for 5 years? So this is what is all about. So this whole open sessions are based on this theme. So we really want to enable, and we do see great future provided we capture the opportunity, provided we leave our comfort and we start stretching ourselves to capture the opportunities. So no doubt there have been huge potential and opportunities are there in embedded domain, and especially from manufacturing also. There are, I do agree the logistic limitations, but still once we start doing in mass, for example, now you see most of the mobile manufacturers also moved a couple of manufacturing units in India, right? Like, so we have manufacturing partners session next month onwards, so you can meet a lot of manufacturers in these sessions, and then like you can discuss with them about their experiences, what kind of market they are addressing, or what are the challenges. You would really get a good interaction opportunity with these partners. So if one learn M3, can he do M7? Yes, of course. At what level you are learning your microcontroller perspective is more important. If you are learning Cortex M3, obviously you should be able to code on M7. The only you have to see what are the additional features, like M3 do not have a DSP, whereas M7 has a DSP. So those are the additional things you have to learn. But yes, if you have learned on M3, you be surely can code for M7. Can you suggest an Arduino-like board to learn STM32 with ARM cores? The ST Microelectronics itself gives a lot of boards. Especially, I like the STM32 Nucleo boards, which comes with a Arduino header. So, and then they are very economic also. So I would say they would be in a range of $10 to $20. I saw somewhere Indian distributors were also selling it for in between 1200 to 1500 and 2000 rupees. So you have the best part, it also companion the Arduino kind of shield. So you can always learn that. So what is the latest research is taking place in embedded field, and what are the opportunities for research with MTech degree in embedded field? So that as Mr. Johnson already highlighted, basically, so we have this AI ML would be no doubt going to be the new future to automate everything and all. So if you are from an embedded field, so you should explore these things. You should also do very basic software skills. You have to upskill yourself with basic programming things, and then like you have a lot of IoT applications which will be coming in future, where in which they need a lot of research in sensor technology, research in specific domains. So we would like to hear different domain experts in these sessions, and then like try to guide people like you, Kalyan. This is for Kalyan basically. So another question was, please suggest the best idea about low cost IoT solution. Is it mandatory to use a processor for IoT, or it is doable with all features like Wi-Fi, cellular, Ethernet, all covered with just STM32 controller or such? So it's a philosophy basically. So if I am the developer coding a microcontroller since last 30 to 40 years, obvious, and if I'm not willing to upgrade myself, basically, I believe always I choose a way to use my microcontroller and pull in the software bundles from here and there, and work with the microcontroller itself. So first of all, you have to understand the IoT architecture itself. So what is the kind of solution you are building, IoT solution? Whether it is a small individual node which has to send the data directly to the cloud, yes, you should work with microcontroller. But if you see a lot of sensors in a defined area, in a defined geolocation, so in that case, where you need to have a lot of small power, low power devices, probably you can design the sensor nodes which will be keep sending the data to a gateway, and the gateway have this Wi-Fi or Ethernet based connectivity to the internet. So so it depends. Again, it's not only about the choosing a microcontroller or microprocessor, but also you have to see what is the architecture of your IoT solution, right? Like so, like say power consumption and network availability, and then like you mainly the power consumption and then the features. So when you are using a microcontroller, you have a little bit more time for the software packages to club together. So initial effort would be more, wherein which if you go with a Linux-based microprocessor, Linux-based, wherein which all the standard stacks are available and all those things, it would be much more easy. I'm not denying that like the microcontroller vendors are not providing libraries, so they do provide libraries, but many of the times it would be restricted with some licenses or with some features. You would really miss the power of operating system like Linux. So in Linux, for example, although I can use my microcontroller if I want to put a database on my local device, obviously it would be not so easy, right? Like so, if you are transferring most of the complex part to the cloud, yes, you can use a microcontroller. So now you can use. There are a lot of wireless microcontrollers which are available by semiconductor companies like TI, ST, Microchip. So these next NXP. So who are providing now smart microcontrollers which are wireless enabled. So in a couple of more sessions, I would try to highlight them. There would be a specific session on wireless microcontrollers, wherein which you have Cortex M4 for the application programming, and you have embedded wireless technology like Wi-Fi or Bluetooth or Zigbee. Not only Zigbee, 802.15.4, on which you can run any proprietary protocols, wireless protocols. And good thing is you also have open CPU cellular modules. Open CPU cellular modules from Quictel, and then from Sierra Wireless, Neoway. These are the wireless cellular modules providers who are also giving you a flexibility of doing the coding in that. So you have a specific application programming capability within that cellular modules. So
Yeah.
you should explore that.
Yeah. Thank you, sir. One more question we have actually, like one person, Jitendra Sawat. So he's asking, GPS-based systems. I mean, for GPS-based system for tracking and knowing the real-time status of the vehicle, which MCU do you suggest basically? So any particular you want to suggest?
So because GPS is mostly they are battery operated. So battery operated, so you should choose a very low cost MCUs. So Cortex M0 Plus is the low cost microcontroller profile. So you have multiple chips from vendors, again from TI, NXP, Atmel, Microchip. So these all guys provide a very low cost microcontrollers which could be sub $1. As far as I know, there are a lot of microcontrollers with Cortex M0. So why I'm saying M0, again, like it is a low power, but again it depends how many sensors you want to attach and all accordingly, and what is the logic you want to implement. If it's just sending a location data, I think ARM Cortex M0 should be sufficient. But nowadays, if you are using LTE modules or so, you have a option wherein which you can program the LTE modules itself to do this. So the LTE modules or the cellular modules are coming with programming option. So you can develop a Linux application for them, or like you can develop a MCU based application. So MC60 is one of the Quictel based module which have GSM 2G plus GPS. So there are a couple of things.
Yeah, just to note, actually MC60 even we produce as a module basically. So that also can be purchased and utilized for your development.
Add-on,
yeah.
MC60 add-on module, you mean to say? Add-on card.
Yes.
Microbus
add-on card. Microbus add-on card we used to produce. Yeah.
So one more question was there that like.
Yeah, please go ahead.
Yeah, there was one question saying that if ESP32, cheap modules, can it be used out of box wireless? No doubt, as we told, so it's all up to what kind of application you are building. So today there are a lot of pilots, at least pilots. I am not sure about the mass production, but there are a lot of pilots which has been developed and deployed using ESP32. So you have to validate what kind of application you are developing, and then whether it is okay to, okay with the longevity or reliability of ESP32. So as on today, it is working. there are small companies, a lot of startups has started. It is a good learning platform at least today. So whether you want to do it for a serious product development, there might be some resistance for big companies if they want to accept your product. There might be some resistance, I mean to say, but there is a huge ecosystem already there. And one of my friend is the Indian channel distributor, Mr. Babu from UG Electronics. So if you guys need for a mass production devices and all, so probably we can connect them.
Yeah, lastly, I think we have also already crossed the time. Lastly, I would like to take one question, maybe combined with Mr. Johnson as well as Vasu. So, will there be a widespread adoption of Zypher RTOS, basically? So, what will be, maybe Mr. Johnson, can you give your comments on this? Hello, Johnson sir, are you there?
Hello.
Yeah.
Hello. Yeah. Is it audible?
Yes, yes, yes. So,
Yeah.
you got your question, right?
Yeah, so Zephyr operating system as such, it is an open source operating system which is developed by the same people who have come up with the Linux operating system, which came to the same level of that is a foundation of open source people. And this operating system is going to be a very big hit in the market. But as you know, usually any operating system which comes to the market, usually it will take the minimum of 3 to 4 years or 5 years to get a very stable version. So Zypher is still in the evaluation stage. Maybe in the next couple of years, it will be full-fledged operating system and it is going to hit the market. How today Linux is hitting the market?
Okay, okay. So, so there are a
Just
lot
to
of
add, Ashraful, I want to little bit add. So,
yes.
So as Zypher is a again Linux Foundation project. So if you really see the quick adaptation of the software modules, right? Like, so example, my one of the question was also from the audience about OTA. So
Yes.
these all kind of modules like and IoTVT and these. So there is a huge ecosystem which are easily integrated into Zypher project, which will really enable it to be a choice for the embedded developers. So first of all, I would like to introduce Zypher is a microcontroller RTOS. Similar to FreeRTOS. I think most of us might know FreeRTOS. So you have FreeRTOS, like people might know the MuCOS RTOS and other things basically. So this is a small microcontroller real-time operating system. So currently the leading RTOS is FreeRTOS, which is widely used. But at the same time, Zypher is it at an early stage, but yes, it would really going to be the next option, the best option for the IoT developers, mainly because of the support and the software modules. So there are a lot of options and ecosystems are already available for OTA in microcontrollers. Our team is especially also working on some of them. So there was a project called, I believe, MicroBoot, so where in which you can develop your own bootloader for MCU and with the help of which you can develop OTA. So it is not like most of the other embed OS and other things are like, there are a lot of operating systems which are also giving OTA modules. So might not be ready to deploy, but with little bit of configuration here and there, you might have to. It should be able. You should be able to achieve a deployable version.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, I think we have come towards the end of the session. I thank everyone especially the panelists and especially the participants for attending this session. I would like to invite you for the next sessions, which we will be updating in our website, pitechembedded.in. So you can please follow the website and get the dates. So next session will be on 10th, and I would like to invite everyone to participate and get some more knowledge related to the semiconductor field and what kind of processor to be sourced.
Ashraful,
So,
the easiest way would be to follow us on LinkedIn or Twitter, wherein which we would be posting the updates, daily updates, and we would
yes.
also be updating the presentations. So sorry, the presentation of today was little bit incomplete, but probably you get the finished version ready available by tonight. So tomorrow you can download from the same page, and we will be keep posting the details. So the next session by TI. Next session by TI team, Mr. Praveen Ganapati, heading the business group, and with his team would be presenting the processor portfolio and the other MSP 430 and other. So whatever we spoke is just an introduction. You have bigger sessions with for each of the components, basically. Each of the components you have a bigger sessions. So this whole month we have more microprocessor partners, basically microcontroller and processor partners, semiconductor partners, followed by connectivity partners and all. So so keep following us to get more updates, and thank you very much. So it is a little bit extended for half an hour, but I think it was a nice investing this time. Thank you to all.
Yeah, okay, thank you. See you next time. Bye-bye.